Hey guys, welcome back to Built by Becker, and today is an extremely special episode. I mean, they're all special, but for me personally, this one is special. I have my man, Eric Green, in the building, bro.
Yes, sir.
What up, man?
Not much, man.
Dude.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for
Happy to
coming,
be
first
here.
of all. I know it takes out of their day. You even had to drive here, so I appreciate that. But any time that someone's willing to come on the show and just dedicate a little time to us, of course, we try to give a little feedback. We try to promote whatever it is you're doing, what you got going on. So we're going to do that for you, clip up some videos and, do our part to help say thank you. But seriously, man, thank you for coming on.
No, man.
We met a few months back, man, and it was just like, it was a good night and it was fun. And, when you said yes to coming on, I was super, super excited, man. So I'm going to stop telling your story. I'm going to let you tell your story. Tell us who you are, man. Let us know, what you got going on.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, man. It's always the pleasure to be with good people. And, like you said, I met you a few months back, man, and it was with all you guys, with Patrick and everybody that Larry introduced me to, man. It was pretty much automatic. And that's been kind of something that I've been praying for and asking. And I was like, because, this whole thing started back in April for me. And once that started, I say, Lord, anybody that's supposed to be a part of this movement, like, pour your spirit on them so I'll know. And then that's way when I can see it on you, it recognizes, it's letting me know that, you know what, these are the people that I need to be involved with. This who needs to be a part of this. And right now, there's a movement that's happening in this country. And I believe that everybody can feel it. Even the liberals can feel it. And
some of them are going crazy.
Well,
about
they
it,
are, but the devil's pissed off, but
right.
it's okay. And but there's a movement happening right now, man, and this is a bigger play to it. And as we can see right now, one thing we're doing, man, we're building a community. And a community means, you know what, man, I'm locking hands with you. You're locking with Patrick. Patrick's locking with Larry. And we're just, and it's not about black and white, man. We got a diverse group.
We're so far past black and white, and I'm so, I can't speak for the black community, but I can speak for my community.
Yes, absolutely.
And man, we don't care who you are, where you come from. The sicker, the better. The crazier, the better. The uglier, the better. The more beautiful, the better. We don't care. Come on in. If you got the same vibe as us, if you have the same energy as us, if you have the same morals, the same ideas, we want good, not just for ourselves, but for everybody. We talk about this all the time, raising our circle up.
Yes.
Our circle of influence, our circle of friends. We want to all do well, and then we want to bring people
everybody else exactly
that is doing the same kind of stuff that we're doing. And we don't care where you come from. We don't care what you look like. We don't care none of that stuff. If you're good people, then you're in.
See, this is how I know this is meant to be, man, because this is right on path of what's happening right now, and it's pretty cool because it's like you said, one thing about me is I surround myself with rich people, and it's the mind. You can have no money and be rich. You understand what I mean? It's the way of thinking. It's the way you carry yourself. You carry yourself a class. I was telling this story yesterday, man. I said, my dad passed 3 years ago, and I still find myself honoring my dad, trying to make him proud, trying to carry his name proud, right? But I also see the small things that he instilled in me. Look at a man in his eyes, from a handshake, from when you say you're going to do something, do it. Carrying yourself, representing yourself in the proper way. I remember being in high school and middle school. They used to call me pretty boy because I always came to school like dressed up because my dad didn't mess around. I couldn't be outside without shoes on. It's like the small things like that.
Those little things.
If a kid came over and he had his pants pulled down, well, pull your britches up and you were done. You'd never be and he had a memory like an elephant. You could be 10 years old like that, and you come back at 15. No, dude, you can't come here. Wow. Because he was just very serious about who was going to be around his kids, and I had a very diverse group of friends from the time I was young.
I'm going to dive into that a little bit because I have all these things I want to talk about, but you know what? Sometimes when things are flowing,
sometimes you got to go,
right? So common ground. My father died 10 years ago, right? And so same thing with me. There was a period of time when me and my dad didn't get along. You know why? Because he tried to impose those values that you're talking about your father did, and I didn't like them. So guess what? I bucked the system. That didn't work out well for me because I went down the wrong path. That bucking the system, starting with my father, my first authority figure, basically turned me down a road where I bucked all authority figures. I bucked the cops. I bucked the teachers. I bucked the principals. I bucked anyone that was the coaches. You know what I mean? I knew better. I had a great opportunity to do track, to do football, to do all these things. But my bucking the system got me in trouble, and I lost all those positions. And then it took me down a path of alcohol and drugs, and we talked about this and how long I've been sober at the last time we hung out. But you know what? I had to go down that path, right?
To get to where
but man, if I could go back and change those times, you know what I mean? I would have listened to my father, because my father wanted the best for me.
Absolutely.
And he was trying to instill values and morals in me, which is funny. Now that I am living a good life, all those things are coming out. And the name of my companies has his name on it.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
And when it's my name as well, but I want to be able to share with the world what my dad instilled in me. Absolutely. I'm trying to rewrite the chapter, right? Or write a new chapter. I have these old chapters, and I'm not ashamed of them anymore, but I'm writing the new chapters to be a better person, to be that person he intended me to be that man that he instilled in me. And, all those values and all those hardworking ethics and things that he did teach me, they're coming up now. And so when Becker Custom Builders is doing a, $2 million project on the beach, I look up and say, man, look, Dad, look what we're doing, man. You know what I mean? Man. This is for you. And when I'm in Mar-a-Lago, shaking hands with the president and all these celebrities and all this stuff, my grandmother messaged me. She goes, your dad would be really proud. Wow. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Look where you come from being in that place of despair and homelessness and brokenness to being at Mar-a-Lago. Shaking hands and rubbing elbows with all these, to me, it was surreal, dude.
It's amazing.
I mean, not to get off topic,
but
being at Mar-a-Lago this week, bro, was like unreal. I know Pat's going to bust my chops because all I talked about this week was Mar-a-Lago, but it really was, and people were commenting on Facebook, man, like, so that's so awesome. And somebody said, man, you look like a kid. I was chopping it up with Tyson, man. I was like, had this huge grin, but he was so much fun. He was enthusiastic. He was like busting my chops, and you know what I mean? And we were talking, and I was like a kid in a candy store.
Absolutely.
I was utterly like impressed with him, his demeanor, his drive towards making America great again. And a lot of people that were there were your front people. The first set of people that received those awards on that night were the first set of people who stood up to society and said, I'm backing Trump. You know what I mean? And that to me was pretty cool. I mean, Roseanne Barr was there. I mean, she lost her job with Disney because of that. You know what I mean? And she was at our table, and we were talking and eating hot dogs. I mean, it was wild. You know what I mean? She was cool, being crazy and doing all this stuff. You know what I mean? And so that to me was cool, to be with these people who stood on the front lines before it was cool again. Because now it's cool again to be friends with Trump. Now it's cool again to have Trump on your side. But for the last 4 or 6 years, it was not cool. And these people stood up to adversity. And you know what? It was an honor to sit with those people.
But man, that takes me back. And one of my quotes I love to say is, I take loyalty over love.
Yeah.
And that's me as a friend. Anyone who knows me as a friend, man, it's like, if I'm your friend, dude, I'm that dude.
Yeah.
Like, we just met, but I promise you call me at 3 a.m, I'll probably beat Patrick there.
Yeah.
That's me. That's how I am.
Depending on traffic, right?
Well, listen, I'll find a way. I'll go another way. You know what I mean? But man, to what you said, I remember being up at the presidential ball, and I think we were walking out of we're leaving we're going over to the commander-in-chief's, and I remember just walking there, and I'm walking through, and I was thinking to myself, man, what would my dad think now?
Yeah.
His son is up here at the presidential ball, little dude from Clewiston, Florida, And man, sometimes it's just like when you're sitting there, it's just sitting back and it's like, man, this is pretty wild,
And how do I get from there?
And how do I get
to here?
From here to here, But it's like they say, train a child. You train, your dad instilled things in you. And even though at that time you were bucking him and bucking the system, when it comes full, look where it came back to. You understand? You came back to exactly the man he wanted you to be, and exactly the man. So it's a process.
Son,
yeah,
right?
it's
the
a process,
son,
man. And it's encouraging for me because my oldest son right now is 19, and he's like, oh man, we're kind of bumping heads a little bit, and it's like, I've always taught him to be a certain way and to think a certain way and to move a certain way, and right now he's kind of bucking the system a little bit. He's bucking, and I backed away and I said, okay, Lord, you deal with him.
Yeah,
because you can do it better than I can. I don't want to run him off. You understand? And he's coming back. He still loves me. But it affected us in a little bit. So to hear that, what you're saying, it's encouraging for me to know that I know he's going to come back to where everything that I taught him,
Yeah, the prodigal son, right?
The prodigal son. But, to get to your point, you said that, you saw these people that were there with him when it wasn't cool. Man, I voted for Trump in 2016. That was the first time I ever voted in my life.
Wow.
I'm 42 years old. And I never voted. I never understood really politics. And there was just a spiritual side of things that I see sometimes. And there was something with Obama. And I was just like, man, I don't know. It's something about I just can't. And I know it was cool to be like, oh, first black president, this and that. And I was just like, no, I can't. I can't get involved in something I don't know. And there's something, he's too good. Yeah. You understand? It was like, he was too smooth. And so I never did. And so I never voted. And then 2016 was when I said, you know what, man, let me pay attention. And it was something I saw in him. And I voted, First time the crazy thing is the first time I go in to vote, I registered to vote and I was going to go like as an independent.
Yeah.
And I get home, I'm like, yeah, I registered to vote. And then I showed my ex and she goes, you're a Democrat? I said, no. They filled me in as a Democrat.
Wow.
So I went back to the place and I said, excuse me, ma'am, you made a mistake. They put me as a Democrat. She said, oh, you're not? I said, no. Matter of fact, I'm a Republican. That's how I became a Republican. And then, so that was first time I voted. Then 2020, went through the line and, they give you a color for Republicans, one for, and I get to the thing and I'm sitting there looking and I was like, man, where's all the other people? And I asked the guy next to me, he said, I think they gave you the wrong one. They gave me a Democrat thing. Yeah. Based off just looking at me because assuming I'm black. Yeah. And there's a movement happening right now, man, especially what we're doing something, man, that's really reaching out to these young people. That's really about to counter that whole Black Lives Matter thing, which was never Black Lives. You understand? It's just what you're talking about, building a community, locking hands, man. A lot of people don't know and they're not taught. So someone has to do it. There's a lot of young people out there. This Gen Z really surprised us, and they came through for Trump.
They did.
And I traveled the whole nation, going around, passing out shirts, talking to people, having conversations. And what I realized was it was so much more interesting and successful with the young people because they weren't stuck in their ways. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
the young crowd is a lot more open and understanding and tolerant than I feel my age group was back then. Maybe it's because I'm getting older, and I think as the older you get, you start to think that your age group wasn't a certain way, but maybe we were. But I do see them being open, and then of course we're able to. They're able to I think they're able to hear things a little differently now.
Well, and they're more diverse. They're more diverse. They have they have friends that look like. They're characters. And so I think with that being said, it just really opens their mind up to different things. They're not stuck in one box. Yeah. And so, but there's a movement happening right now, man, and it's going to start with us, dude. And you're going to see this thing is going to take off nationally. Yeah. It's going to be a national movement that's really going to address a certain group of people.
I love it.
That's been kind of targeted.
I'm going to ask a few questions because I do want to get some information out there to the viewers, to the listeners. Early beginnings, man. Tell me a little bit about your football career. You played a little high school, a little college, a little NFL, right? Right. Yep. So those that are listening, might want to hear a little bit about, how that all came about.
Well, I started playing football when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
And honestly, from the time I was born, every Christmas, birthday, I always got a football.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I wasn't that good. I was an offensive lineman, offensive guard, number 63. When I first started playing. Okay. And I had older brothers who played, and they were really good. Yeah. And so I was like the little scrubbers kid that was slow. They used to call me an Indian because I ran flat-footed. I was the slowest guy on the football team all the way till 10th grade.
Okay.
And so I started playing, and really, it kind of happened on accident or not an accident. I know God has a purpose for everything, but after my third year, Mighty Mites, I was 9 years old. Our season had ended, but the group ahead of us, the team I was going to go to the next year, they were going to University of Miami to play at this championship. So I went over to their practice, and one day I just grabbed this football, and they're in practice, and I could always throw. I just would never let anybody know. And I launched this football across, and the coach blows the whistle. Who threw that ball? And I was scared, but I was like, I did. He said, do it again. I threw it again. He said, you're going to be my quarterback.
Wow.
So I went from being an offensive guard, number 63, to a quarterback. You
Wow.
understand? And from that moment on, man, it's been a game changer.
Football took off.
Everything it changed, and I started to build a name. And so when we would go travel places, everybody knew Eric Green, Eric Green. Even I had family members in my hometown that would call me by my full name. Like, dude, I'm Eric. Why everybody call me Eric Green? It's weird. But I played through, and I had a high school coach, Al Morrell, who's very famous in Clewiston. He's a Hall of Famer in the state of Florida. He would come out and watch our games, and that was like a college coach coming to recruit you. And so when I look over there and see Al Morrell, I was like, oh, it's on.
Yeah.
And so once I got to high school, I was a good baseball player. I actually love baseball more than football. And when baseball season came, he said, you're running track. I said, no, coach, I'm a baseball player. He said, no, you're not. I said, I am. He said, no, you're not. Best thing that ever happened to me. He made me quit baseball and run track.
It's so funny because I remember, same thing with me. I was going into like 7th or 8th grade, and same thing. I played baseball, I did football, I did basketball, and my football was starting to pick up, and they said, you got to join the track team. And I was like, I've never even looked at the track team. I could never even cross my mind. And so they said, nope, you're going to start doing sprinting training. And then the cool thing about our track coach, he was from England. He was a long distance runner, but he was a sprint coach.
Oh, wow.
So he would make us run long distance. And I hated him. Sprinters.
Yeah, that's not my thing either.
I got the reputation around the playground. I'm fast. You're not going to have me run long distance. Well, he made us run long distance. I'm going to tell you what. I was in one of the state track meets. I think it was like 8th grade or whatever. And it was a relay. And we won because of that long distance training.
Oh, wow.
Because what I found as a sprinter is you can only sprint for so long.
And then
but you run out of juice.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the long distance training, our team
prepared
pulled away.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it was that track training that helped. And then, of course, I played cornerback and receiver. And back then, you played both sides of the ball.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
I get it.
Now, I didn't, like I said, my trouble and stuff like that got in my way and my behaviors and stuff like that. But it's funny to hear, whether in Clewiston or Illinois, no matter where you're at, they were pushing the same thing, man, which is cool.
But probably by my sophomore, I was a quarterback. And then going into my sophomore year, we had a senior quarterback. And so obviously I wasn't going to beat this guy out. Yeah. And this guy was a tough dude. He was really good. A guy by the name of Josh Pohill. He actually lives over in the Naples, Fort Myers area now.
Okay.
And he was the quarterback. And so I was like, well, I got to find another position if I want to get on the field. So I moved over to wide receiver. Well, guess what? Ended up becoming one of the top wide receivers on the team, helped us go to state.
Nice.
Actually, that's when I started getting looks from colleges because, we played the Pahokee. And the semifinals, I think it was, and Anquan Bolden, who was Mr. Florida at the time, I caught the game-winning touchdown on Anquan.
Right, nice.
And so at that time, they're like, who is this little skinny little turd right here? You know what I mean? So that I remember coming out of there, and I was one of those kids too, man. I was hard-headed and stubborn, and I wasn't, I was always a good kid, but it was just want a bucket.
Yeah.
When it comes to grades, just doing what it took so I can play. I didn't think about college. A lot of these kids now are thinking they're D1 prospects in 8th grade. And it's like, I never even thought about that. And then so here it is. You're playing to play because I loved it.
Yeah.
And so he would get on me, man. And my girlfriend was a cheerleader, dude. He'd come out there and grab my face mask. And my mom thought it was funny. They all laughed and they just, I was like, man, this is not cool. But he used to rip my butt. And then he picked me up we have film on Saturday. Every Sunday he would come pick me up. And he would say, Eric, listen, I'm sorry. He'd start crying. And he'd say, I just love you. And I see something in you that you don't see. And it bothers me.
Yeah.
And he said, you can go on and play big time football. And I was like, first time I heard him, it was like, man, whatever.
Yeah.
He picked me up the next week. He said it. By the third time, I was like, well, if he's saying that, I know this guy's the real deal.
Yeah. Maybe
I can. And I received my first college letter. I think it was from West Virginia. And I said, it's on. When I saw that one, I said, it's on. Okay. And so at that point on, everything changed.
That's where you went to play, correct?
Yeah. I went to Virginia Tech.
Oh, Virginia Tech.
But I was committed to West Virginia first. Okay. And so that was like the first school that I committed to. We didn't have Twitter back then. So I was committed to everybody who offered me. Man. I was
said yes to everything.
Miami, West Virginia, NC State, Indiana. I mean,
Wow, they all were coming for
and
you.
UCF. Oh, dude, I
Nice.
was going everywhere. I mean, but it was by the end
Did
of my
you travel
senior-
to all those? Did you
No.
visit?
I visited West Virginia, NC State, Virginia Tech, and Indiana.
And what made you pick Virginia Tech? What was the deciding factor? They showed you a
I
good
actually
time?
committed to Virginia Tech on my visit to Miami.
Okay.
And it was because Miami and Virginia Tech, I kind of narrowed it down to those two. And when I was in Miami, these guys took us out. And back then, Miami was Miami.
Oh, yeah.
The Hurricanes had more pull than the Dolphins. And I mean that. I mean, we went out to places and the Dolphins were in line and the Hurricanes was like, hey, come through.
Wow.
And they had like Uncle Luke and all these people that was there. I mean, dude, it was wild. And I'm from Clewiston.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I haven't seen before. You understand what I mean?
Welcome to Miami.
And I got there and I was like, and I had my buddy Alfonso Marshall, who was on my team. He actually went and played at Miami. They were recruiting us both. And I got there and I was like, I am not coming to school here. I can't graduate. How can you focus on school? He was like, I'm coming. I said, no, I'm not.
How did he do?
He did good. He ended up graduating. He ended up getting drafted, I think, 5th round or something, I think, to the Chicago Bears. Ended up having ACL injury and it kind of knocked him out. But, he played during that Sean Taylor era and all that, Ed Reed and all those guys. So he was a part of that. But I remember going back to my hotel at a DoubleTree that night and I said, you know what, man, I can't come here. Like, I'm from a little town. I'm conservative, you know what I mean? In ways I'm not exposed to all that at this time. And so I knew when I went to Virginia Tech, Mike Vick was there. I had Philip Summers, who is from my hometown. He's actually the principal at our high school, but our parents were best friends. And there was more like a small town college atmosphere. Yeah. You understand? And I was like, it was more like a family atmosphere. And that's, I operate well in those environments. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to Tech.
Stemming back to everything your dad instilled in you.
Yeah. You
didn't want to get away from what was comfortable,
Yep.
you still wanted to go out on this opportunity, man. I see
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
And it was 100%, man, the best experience of my life. I had a head coach in Frank Beamer that was just, you don't find men like that anymore. And it kind of goes back to even now, when dealing with these young people, just imagine had somebody given up on you when you were being a knucklehead. Yeah. You would have never come back to be what you are. Right. And I had coaches like that. They were going to hold you to the fire. But I ended up going to Virginia Tech. Coming out of high school, I was the best player on my team. I get to Virginia Tech and I'm a nobody. And so now I get up there early. I went up early in the summer and I was like, man, I got to prove myself. I get out here and Mike Vick's there. I was going to play receiver. And the first day I get there, I was like, you know what? I think I want to play DB. And I jump out there, and I remember this guy, Andre Davis. I get out there, and he ran past me like I was not moving. I was like, oh, my gosh, I can't do this. Well, come to find out, Andre Davis was like the 3rd fastest in the world at age 18 at his age group. And I was like, yeah, this dude is like a 800 meters. Yeah. It was different, Yeah. But I ended up kind of getting there, and I've always had a very high football IQ. I wanted to know everything. I was always taught to know everything my coach knows. So I went in that summer, and I would get in the film, and I would open a playbook, and I would start early. So by the time we started, man, I was already ahead of the game. And my coach, for some reason, his name was Lorenzo Ward. Every single time, man, he would always call me out in the meetings. We're exhausted. Green, what do we do on this? And I'm like, and I asked him, I said, Coach, man, why you always call me out? You never mess with anybody else. He was like, the day I stop calling you is when you need to worry. I said, okay. Yeah. So then he ended up coming up and said, you know what, Eric, I'm going to play you as a true freshman this year. And I was like, wow. Nice. And I ended up, being a special teams guy at first and then earned my way up, ended up starting and being a freshman All-American. Nice. And as you know, like life, we go through things and you have ups and downs. And then I had injury, it tore my ACL. Ended up bouncing back, man, and getting drafted by the Cardinals in the 3rd round. Yeah. And that was a real wild experience because,
What's the NFL like? Like, from a kid's perspective. You're in college. You're still a kid. I mean,
yeah,
you don't think you're a kid at that time.
But
you
are.
Think you're an adult, but you're a kid.
You are.
You're a kid.
For sure.
Basically, it's not-nosed kid still. What's it like to be introduced to that kind of money and exposure? And, they're sure they're trying to recruit you in some form or fashion, so they're whining and dining you. And what's that like as a kid?
I'll tell you what, the NFL Combine was very interesting because people think it's just like, oh, you're going there to compete. No, it's a job interview. Mm-hmm. It's real life. I mean, you're wearing a suit at night, going to meet a coach at 10 p.m. You know, you have a meeting with, let's say, the Chicago Bears, and you go in and the head coach and the defensive coordinator and the DB coach there, and they're going over your test scores and they're interviewing you. I mean, just like a job interview.
Yeah.
And so that was a real kind of wild experience. At the time, I was top 6 corners coming out, but I had an injury that I tried to hide. Well, when I got to the combine, they found it. And plus, I had a pulled hamstring, but they convinced me into running, and I was like, my agent said, do not run. And I ran a slow time because I was afraid of pulling, and it kind of hurt me a little bit. So here it is on draft day. I have cameras at my house. I'm expecting to go first round, and all these names are just going by. And I'm like, oh, gosh. Second round come. Oh, gosh. I'm not going to get drafted. And I finally got that phone call. Man, listen, you would have thought I was the first pick overall. It didn't matter, man. I was just like, first round, fifth round, doesn't matter. I'm in.
Right.
You know, and you got to think, man, from the time you're 7 years old, and now I'm 22 years old, about to get my lifelong dream is about to happen. And it was just like, you know, someone pinched me, like, this can't be real, you know? And of course, when you're coming from a small community, a impoverished area, you know, when you get drafted, the whole town got drafted, you know? And so.
Your phone probably didn't stop ringing.
Oh, man. So those, you know, those were troubles that came later, you know, and me being who I am, because I'm always, I don't think about myself first. I think about other people, and I'm always want other people to be good. Yeah. And I think there's a sin in that, in a way, when you give too much and you don't know how to give. You understand? Because then you lose. Yeah. And so the whole experience of being in NFL, walking in that locker room the first day, me and Antrell Roll from University of Miami, he was the first round corner. I was the third, and I remember walking in that day, and I was about the oldest guy on my team. And I walk in there, and this guy's with 6, 7 kids with gray beards, and I was like, man, this is different. Yeah. You know, you got white guys that are 6'5" tight ends that can run just as fast as you. That's different. Yeah. You understand? I wasn't used to that. Everybody. And it's like excellent. Everybody there is the best was the best on their team. Yeah. And then when you think about the games, especially as a cornerback, man, you don't have a down week. You don't have a week where you're like, oh, you know what? You remember high school, we're playing so-and-so. Oh, I'm going to have 3 touchdowns and I'm going to do this. Well, you don't have that, because every week you're facing a first-round draft pick that runs a 4.240. And like 3 of them. Yeah. You understand? They're everywhere. Yeah. And so, man, it's different. Yeah. And there are different levels to NFL. You know, they're the Peyton Mannings of the world. They're the Tom Brady's of the world. And they are who they are for a reason. Yeah. And it's very noticeable when you play those guys, because those guys are not only amazing at their craft, but those guys are very intelligent, like highly intelligent. You know, you can fool them once, but you will not fool them twice. Wow. And they're very poised. And so, you know, like I said, it was an amazing experience. Never thought I'd be where I'm at now. Yeah. You know, someone asked me the other day, did you ever think if you look back at your career, would you think that you would be where you are now? And I said, no way. I'm not a politician. I don't get involved in politics and all of that. I just never thought I would. But now it's bigger than politics. It's about being a good person. You know, God has blessed us to be in a position to where we have a good life, man. And I think it's important that we're able to give back to those who don't.
Where'd your journey of faith start? Was it instilled in you at a young age from your father, or did you find that on your own?
God found me. Well, I think God was always there from the time I was a young kid, man. My story, you know, I was one of those young kids, you know, I lived with my dad and my stepmom, but I also had a very close relationship with my mom, who I'm very close to now. But my mom lived like a mile away from me. But you know, I had some childhood trauma that could have really easily turned me into a monster. Yeah. You know, but I was always different. I've always thought different. And I can remember not being 5 years old and not calling my mom, dad, or anybody anything, because I didn't want anybody to feel more special. I loved them all equal. Yeah. You understand? And I didn't want my dad to think, just because I live with you, that I love you more than my mom. You understand? Yeah. And so imagine being 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, having to process all of that. So when I played football, that was my outlet. Sometimes they thought I was sweating, but I was crying. You understand? And so when it came to God, I can remember my rookie year. I was in Arizona. Matter of fact, I was at a casino. And I remember sitting there, and I I heard this voice, not audibly, but I heard it. I don't know how to explain it.
No, I know the experience.
It wasn't like, hey, Eric, but I heard, hey.
Yeah.
And it was like, he said he wanted me. And I said, man, I just got drafted. I said, not yet, man. I got to have my fun. I ain't never had money before. Lord, you got to let me, like, listen, I'll get
Call
saved.
me next year.
Yeah, call me next year. You know what I mean? Or maybe give me about 3 or 4 years.
Let me try this out for a little bit.
And I ran away. And then the next year, same time of the year, it was August. He said the same thing. And I said, man, not yet. And so when he wants you, and I always tell people, pray, be specific, and listen, because you don't want to be whipped by God. It is the most painful experience that you can ever go through. But when you come out of it, man, you'll be different. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, you're just, something's wrong with you, you know? And I went through that, man. And so I started going through these injuries, like weird stuff started happening to me, man. Stuff like off the wall, like just, you know, I'm like, and this is where I talk to people. It's like, you know, I'm a good person, but it's like, what is a good person? What are you comparing that to? What says you're good? I thought because I never would hurt people. I've always looked out for people. I wanted people to have this. I thought that was being a good person, and I was good. And it was like, so when I got out, I was angry, and I hated God, and I cursed God, and I blamed him for everything. I said, I never hurt anybody. Why would you ever allow things to come at me and people to hurt me and people to use me and all this? You understand? Why my career when these guys were turds? I know these guys are bad people. Yeah. You know what I mean? But then it goes back to what's good, you know? And I remember there was a day my stepmom had a hip surgery in Fort Lauderdale, and I was in the car and my phone, I had an old iPhone with the glass and it cracked. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go to my Bible, and whatever it lands on, I'm going to, Lord, that's for me. And that happens to me a lot. So I go to it and I went to Revelations. And I don't know if you've ever read Revelations or anybody out there.
Read Revelations in a group that I'm in. So yes, I'm very familiar as of right now with that.
Well, dude, let me tell you something. For a young dude who doesn't really understand the Bible, but know and really is, you know, coming to God, it scared the living crap out of me. But then there was a part when he was talking about the second death, and we had to stand before God. And when I heard that, man, I just I broke down crying because he answered. Because I went from being angry at him to say, okay, God, like, I know you allowed certain things, but why? Yeah. What's my purpose? And when I heard that, man, I just broke. Yeah. And I mean, I'm talking about grown man crying, snot bubbles, dude. I'm talking about, it was real bad. Real crying. And I call my ex and I'm like, oh my gosh. She starts crying and she don't know why. And I'm like, I know he saved me. Because had something happened to me, I was going to burn in eternity. Yeah. Because I thought I was a good person, but I wasn't saved, you know? And I remember that day.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah, man. Yeah. You know, and I remember that day. It was the day the devil had got my mind so gone, and I was going to make a decision that would have ended my life and left my kids without a father. And I remember that day I was sitting there, and man, I'll probably get emotional talking about it. But I remember that day I was sitting there, and I said, if you love me, then show me. And man, something happened that day that changed my life. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, dude.
No.
And I ain't expect to talk about that, but anyways, sorry guys. Anyways, so when that happened, I remember I was taking my son to drop my son off with my sister. I was gonna do it, and my mom calls me. And she said, Eric, what are you doing? I said, Mom, you know something, because my mom has that spiritual gift.
Intuition.
Yeah. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, Mom, I'm pumping gas. I'll call you back. I didn't call her back. She called me back 5 minutes later. She said, Eric, why didn't you call me back? She knew something. I was like, well, I was pumping gas. She said, Eric, I know this sounds crazy, but I was walking and this lady saw me. She took off her glasses and she said, ma'am, I know you don't know me, but I'm a prophetess. And the Lord shows me. And when I saw you, I saw one of your children. And it's like, he's like this young man is like a celebrity, and the Lord gave him everything, but the enemy's trying to take his life. And when she said that to me, I was literally on my way to drop I knew because I told no one. Yeah. And man, from that moment, I said, I dropped everything, and I never turned away since. And since that day, I went to meet that lady. And when she saw me, she looked in my eyes and she said, "Oh." I said, "What?" She said, "You're a seer." I was like, and I wanted her to tell me, because I never told my mom what I saw since I was a kid. I never told anybody. She said, "The Lord shows you things, don't he?" And I said, she said, "Oh, you just wait. He's going to show you a lot more the closer you get. And I'm going to have to show you how to handle it, because it can be a lot." And man, I'm telling you, dude, it probably within a year or so, things start happening. I start having visions and seeing things. And man, it's been
people that don't understand and hear these kind of things will categorize you as crazy, or weird, or outcast you. But when you've experienced these kind of things, that's why I love talking about spiritual stuff, man, because and you and I talked at that party like about stuff, and we get it. And we talked about earlier in the conversation, language of the heart. When I'm speaking the same language that you're speaking, and I believe that's the language of love, and that's the language of God.
Absolutely.
We get it.
Absolutely.
And I don't disbelieve a second of anything you just said. I was mentally visualizing it. I was there. I was living it with you. Like God was sharing that moment, that spirit with you, and having you get a little emotional is cool, man. Like I'm just cool. Like that doesn't faze me, and I think it shows your character. You've been touched by God. And to me, that is an amazing gift. And some people have not been touched by God, and some people maybe will never be touched by God. But the ones who have, and sometimes you have to go through something super traumatic. We've talked about this before. I had to go through what I had to go through. And people from the outside would say, how could Eric, he's a star, he's this, he's that. How could he be broken? We all have our breaking point.
Absolutely.
No matter how much money you got, how much fame you got, how much stuff you don't have, that when we get weak, and I really firmly believe, and this is my belief system, that I had to get to that place of weakness to where I figured out, like, I can't do this on my own. I need God's help.
Same here.
And I'm going to now turn my life over to this God. I'm going to seek this thing, and I'm going to do it as best as I can, as much as I can. And even though I fall and I waver and I sin and I do those things, you know what? Like, I just know that I'm doing the right things. You know what I mean? And it's so amazing 100%. To be with people who have gone through the same thing, and to hear it and feel it and understand it. Like, it's amazing. And the thing is, I didn't know that group of people existed until I knew that they existed. And now that I know that they exist, so many of us, it's cool. But like when I was lost, I didn't know that was there. But now that I've been found, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I know there's a whole group of us that can have a conversation like this and identify.
Because it's people like us that have been broken, that have made mistakes, that have fallen, that, you know, if someone out there is struggling with alcohol, if you never had an issue with alcohol, how can you ever understand what they're going through?
Exactly.
If a person is struggling with depression and anxiety, how can someone who's never experienced depression and anxiety help those people?
They can have, what's it called? You can have sympathy, but you can't have empathy.
Because
you haven't been there. I can sympathize for you.
But just like what you said you lived it. As I was speaking, I'm looking at you and I can see it. And it's like you lived it, but just in a different way. So you understand. And so there are so many people out there, and that doesn't make us perfect. Are we sinners? Absolutely. You understand? But there are so many people out there that are broken that God is going to use us to be able to help them. You understand? And how much help that is? Man, we all help in our own ways. We all have, it's like when it goes back to politics, man, you have some people who's a congressman, some people, I always told Larry, I said, man, I'm a frontline soldier. I'm the one that's going on boots on the ground. It's like when the Lord told me, Eric, this is what you're going to do. And I said, Lord, I'll do whatever you want me to. Just let me. And that's what I've been doing. And it's like, and he said, you know what, Eric, you're going to be able, because you can say things and do things that other people can't. And so you're going to be the mouthpiece, my mouthpiece, but you're also going to be the mouthpiece for those who can't do it.
So it's good when you get to walk in God's purpose.
Absolutely,
when you
man.
Start walking in God's purpose, you have just a feeling inside that you know you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, man.
And he's constantly he's constantly introducing me and bringing more brothers in my circle. And that's why, like, it's just happening, man. You know what I mean?
So how can we help you, man? How can we compose? What do you got going on that we can help promote? You doing anything? What do we got going on?
Well, actually, right now, man, we're doing something. I'm actually going to have a community in my town of Clewiston. We're going to have a community meeting Monday, and it's kind of a pop-up surprise meeting that we're going to have at the New Harvest Church in Clewiston at 6 p.m. We have a surprise for the community, something that the Lord put on my heart back in April when he first spoke this whole thing to me. I mean, it's a real wild story. And it's like my mom, and I said, Mom, do I invite the commissioners? And she said, Eric, invite. I didn't want to I don't want to get involved in local politics, and people want to be bigger than others. And she said, Eric, invite them. She said, because the Lord spoke to you. Yeah. He spoke to you. He spoke this vision to you. And Eric, it all came to pass. Who can deny what God is doing? How did my son end up at the inauguration, at the presidential ball, at Mar-a-Lago, at the watch party? Like, it's not possible. NFL, no NFL, you don't get lucky like that to be in these circles and around the people that God has put me around, allowed me to be around. You understand? Yeah. It's been a big plan of his. You understand? And so right now, we have something, and God spoke to me. He said, because we're going to do it. He said, we're going to save the nation. And I heard it as clear as day. And I didn't know what that meant. And the next day, man, he started adding more and doing more and more. And he told me that Joe Biden wasn't going to be the president. He said, they're going to bring in a black female, and they're going to try to create this racial divide. And I'm going to use you and others that I'm going to get, and we're going to bring the nation together. And I said, wow. And I shared it with my mom right away. My mom was a never Trumper, my whole family. Literally. My mom would get nauseous if you said Trump's name. My mom is so MAGA right now, dude. It's like, you don't even understand. My brother talked me all the way to this podcast. You understand? Like, my whole family has changed. And it's like, charity starts at home. Yeah. And I'm so glad that I was sharing with God. Every time when the Lord speaks to me, I share it with somebody. It's like a witness. And so when something happened and it come to pass, didn't we talk about this? Yeah. And so he said the other part of that was we were going to do something for the community. And so I got so caught up in the presidential thing, man. And after Trump won, I'm like, yes, it's done. It's over. And I ran into one of our local leaders in the community, Denise Hatton. And Miss Hatton sees me. She said, Eric, how's your project going? I said, oh, it's done. He won. She said, Eric, but what about the kids? I said, oh, gosh. Right. The next day, my mom called me. She said, Eric, I heard the Holy Spirit this morning say, tell Eric it's not over. And I said, oh, gosh, Lord, all right, I get it. All right, I get you. Man, it has been nonstop, dude. I'm telling you, I have been maybe 4 hours of sleep. I have to try to go to bed before 12 o'clock because at midnight, he'll wake me up. Or he'll speak to me if I'm up, and then I'm up, dude. I can't sleep because I have to go instantly into my notes and just write down everything that he's telling me. And right now, he said that we're going to start something in Clewiston, and it's going to go out to the rest of the nation. And so right now, we're going to announce at that meeting that we're going to build a Boys and Girls Club for the city of Clewiston, for the Harlem community, which is the black community. I met this guy, Michael Johnson. He's a local guy from Clewiston. He does videography and all that. He actually just won an Emmy Award. Okay. And he's like, hey man, I want to be a part. What can I do? I said, can you come help me film? And we went out there and we took some footage. And I said, I think it's important for people to see because so many people live right here in Clewiston that don't even understand and know what these young people are doing. And we have other corporations there that do a lot for the community, but it's like the community has to buy into it. Yeah. It can't always be a handout. You understand? And so now God is dealing with me with that handout thing, right? And he's getting me to deal with the black community because there's a movement going. And this whole thing that we have now is called Join the Movement. And that's why we're going to have new shirts and new products coming out. And we have a website that's being put up right now. It's actually already up, but we're still working on it. It's partneringwithamerica.com, partneringwithamerica.com. And we're going to give people an option of going on there. And when you go on, we want to ask people to do like a $20 monthly subscription. And if they can subscribe for that $20, that money's going to go directly to this cause. And I'm being an ex-athlete and a coach, I like to simplify things. So when I'm teaching guys how to play cornerback, I'm like, hey, first thing we're going to do, I want you to put your arms out right here. Yeah. See that? That's your shield. And when that receiver gets off the ball, I want you to give ground and have this shield in your mind. If that guy goes around that shield, all I want you to do is go up the field and cut him off. Yeah. If he goes anywhere within that and getting within reach range, you punch and you grab. You understand? That simplifies it for someone who's never played. So the way I look at it, man, if we can get 50,000 people, that's half of a football stadium, to subscribe to $20 a month, that's $1 million a month that will go to a community. And when I tell you, man, it goes back to, like we said, God has put us in a position to have influence. He's made sure we have a good life. And this is borrowed time. This is borrowed money. And I woke up the other day and I heard something. I didn't wake up. It was 12 o'clock. He made me get up. And I heard Matthew 25:35. I was like, Matthew 20. I don't know what that is. Let me go look at it. And it was Jesus talking. And he was separating the sheep from the goats. And he was telling the sheep, he said, surely I tell you, I want you to enter this place that I have prepared for you. Because when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was sick, you took care of me. When I was in prison, you visited me.
When did we do these
And they
things
say,
to you
Lord, when did
anymore?
we do this? And he said, surely I tell you, when you did it to the least of those, you did it for me.
Yeah.
And that hit me so hard because it's like, there are a lot of kids out there. We have young, and I'll say, I know because this is my community, young African-American kids in these communities that don't have fathers. They don't have uncles. They don't have mentors. They don't have anybody. And when they're acting out, how can we blame them when they have no one to, they don't have a dad that was like yours. Even though you bucked it, you still had a dad that was there that would constantly say this. And the most teaching they're getting is, or discipline they're getting is when they have to go to school for those few hours so they don't get suspended. And so now I have the superintendent of Hendry County Schools reach out to me and say, Eric, listen, I'm partnering with the city of Clewiston and the police chief and we want to address this issue. He said, Eric, I can't keep suspending these kids because I'm sending them to a prison system. Yeah. And I can hear the conviction in his voice. And when he said that, I said, man, that's right on what I want. Let's join forces. And so we're going to do this, man. We're going to raise the funds. We're going to build something that this is going to be generational for these young people. And it's going to be a game changer.
That's great, man. Let's, you be able to share the links with me?
Yes, I will. I'll share those links.
When this airs next week,
yes,
I'm going to put the links in there.
Yes, so absolutely.
That way people can share it. We'll put it on Facebook.
Yes, man.
We want people to donate the $20.
Yes.
And we'll all hear, everybody here will do it. We'll all jump in and support.
Yep.
And I'm going to get it out there as much as you can. So any links you have, anything that you have, that I want you to send that to me. We'll put it in there. We're going to share it. We're going to blow it up.
Yes, sir.
And then once you guys get things up and running, you guys want some guests, we're going to take a road trip, man. We'll take a road trip and come on up.
Definitely, you know, we want people to get on there, subscribe, man. Get the join the movement because, man, we're about to change a whole movement in this community. You know, my community, the African American community in Clewiston, I would say probably 99% Democrat. That's changing.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they've been made promises forever and ever and ever, and our communities have gotten worse. Right now, we're going to do something different, but we're going to get invested. The community is going to invest, and it's going to change the mindset. And that place, you mark my word, would be 80 to 90% the opposite way. Because it's not about Democrat, Republican, man. It's about this move is America first. Yeah. Let's take care of our own people. Let's take care of our people here first, and then we can go out. So when we do it in Clewiston, then guess what? We're going to be in the Chicagos where they say the Black Lives Matter and all that. No, you know what? Hey, how about this, guys? Y'all want to help? Y'all want to help deal with this issue of gang violence and all this, man? Let's build something so these kids can have something to do and have an outlet. Yeah. Because there's also mental health and other things that can come behind this.
Full circle.
It all comes together, man. Yeah. So if you guys can, man, it'd be awesome that we could all make this happen, man.
Sure. Well, man, I'm so honored to have you here. I think we unpacked a lot of good stuff about football, about faith, about your endeavors that you're doing right now, about politics. I mean, that's what a good show is all about, man. We talked about a lot of good stuff.
Absolutely, man.
And I believe our bond and our friendship is going to continue to grow. And man, I will be honored to help out in any way that I can. I know the Lord has blessed us, and we will definitely be a part of that. And thank you for coming, man. Built by Becker, Eric Green, doing big things. Links will be in this show right here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, man.